what I want to discuss is tramp ants, and there says there's 6 things that you need to know about the 7 most difficult ants to control in the world. So we're going to focus on 4 ants, and then we're going to focus on our protocols. I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give you the whole, my entire training for my text is only 8 pages long. That's it. There's nothing that you need to go crazy about what we do. It's super simple, but it requires a fundamental shift, a paradigm shift in how you think about pest control and what you've been taught. And a lot of what you've been taught, it's 10 years old, and it's mostly convenient for growth, not really for control. And so that's what we're focused on. Tramp ants are a series of ants that basically hitchhike on cargo around the world. And that's how they get here. In case you didn't know, Florida has the largest fauna of ants in the country. We've got 200 ant species, 50 are exotic, 7 are a nightmare. So when it comes to our environment, we give them everything they need to thrive here. And this is why they're so difficult to control. So we're going to discuss the behavior that's going to help you understand why you're having control. Let's talk about big-headed ant. Not a big problem in a lot of homes, but when you do have it, it's a nightmare. Okay? One of the things that these all guys have in common is they got 6 traits in common. If you understand those traits, you can pretty much control them all. Chemical is not the solution. I want you to get chemical out of your head. It sounds weird. I'm not a chemical guy. I'm not a manufacturer coming here trying to sell you my chemical and say, here, use this chemical because it suits me because I need to sell it. I need to move it. It's on my, cross the line product that I need to sell. I sell you a program that's actually integrated that's going to help you get it controlled. But when you have a big-headed ant problem, how many of you can identify a big-headed ant? Okay, so everyone here pretty much can identify the big-headed ant. Where people fall apart is the big-headed ant. The major worker is not always going to be around. What you're going to encounter is minor workers. And what people confuse that with is fire ant. You start treating it as a fire ant. Now, luckily, if you use extinguish to control big-headed ant, it'll control it. Extinguish alone. All right. So when you're seeing a lot of the big-headed ants, what you're going to see, the actual big-headed ant, the major worker, what you're going to find out is that the colony probably is collapsing. You don't see that many of them. That's your indicator. So if you're doing service in a house, and all of a sudden you see a lot of minor workers, and you're coming back the following week, 10 days to do the follow-up, you're going to find out that the indicator it's collapsing is you start seeing more major workers than minor workers. All right. The crazy ant. Okay. The crazy ant is a tramp ant species. Okay. It hitchhikes everywhere. Very easy to control, surprisingly. All you really need to control that ant, really, Max Force Complete will knock it out no matter where it is by itself. We're an exclusive zero indoor spray company. We haven't sprayed the inside of a home for any general pest in 9 years now. I like that. Haven't done it. We don't need to. We control 99% of the pests, which is ants, roaches, and silverfish. Is 95% of your problem. And then the only thing we really have to spray for is flea service. You got to do a surface spray. And ticks you can control on crack and crevice. But we're a zero spray company otherwise. We're 100% bait indoor. 100%. And 50% bait outdoor. So the ghost ant is going to be your #1 nightmare. And we're going to discover why that is. That little ant, which has 1 billionth of brain power, will kick your can all over the place if you allow it. We control that zero spray indoor. White-footed ant. Back in 2009, it was like every other call I had was a white-footed ant call. All of a sudden, 2 years later, that ant really, if I get 2 calls a year on white-footed ant, we solve that with nothing more indoor and outdoor with nothing more than gel bait, really, on the outside. It can be totally controlled, wipe it out, 2-shot with gel bait alone. But you got to know how to do it. All right, so let's talk about the biology. They're unicolonial, they're polygynous, they're polygamous, they're omnivorous, they all bud, and they all fragment. And that is why everybody is failing, because they don't understand this part right here. This is the key for you to understand this. All right, so what's budding? What's unicolonial? Think of it, this is a network hub, okay? And what they do is they will make multiple colonies. They don't make one. They're not like a fire ant or a red imported fire ant that has one, or a carpenter ant that makes a satellite nest, but it can have a satellite nest inside and a nest outside. These guys make all multiple nests. Their polygyny allows them to multiply very, 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 very quickly and be very efficient. Think of terrorist cells. Why can't we get terrorist cells? Because they're not structured like a military. They will branch off and do their own thing. And this is what happens. You will have one nest. You can have literally in one kitchen. You will have a nest in the shelf. You will have a nest behind that outlet. You will have another nest behind the microwave. You will have a nest that goes around the corner. If you find it, it'll go 20, 30 feet. And you'll go up to a corner of a sliding door, and that nest will be up there. Baseboard spraying for ghost ant is totally useless. Baseboard spraying for crazy ant inside is totally useless. Totally. Big-headed ant inside spraying is totally useless. When you have a nest inside the wall and you're spraying, that nest is going outside. They're not coming in. And the frass, people all the time call and they say, well, I've got termite. Send me a picture. 9 times out of 10, they don't have termite. They have a big-headed ant infestation. So they will make multiple queens, and they will have multiple queens in the nest. They're not antagonistic. So they will share all the resources. But one of the things is that since they bud, and I'm not going to bore you too much with it. Let's go back a little bit, yeah. They really share everything. Food, resource, queens, they share everything. And they'll share it with the network. So you wipe one out here, but you still have one here. In a couple of days, within a week, she will fragment this one because you sprayed the baseboard with a pyrethroid. And all of a sudden, she will fragment, and poof, 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 and you've got 10 more nests. And that's the challenge. Now they're omnivorous. They'll eat carbs, proteins, sugars, carbohydrates. This is why these guys can survive anywhere. Anything. Other insects. You'll see beetles being destroyed by them, carried, roaches being carried by these guys. So very hard to do, especially with big-headed ant when you're using baits, because during certain seasons, in like late in the year, they'll switch from carbohydrate consumption to pure glucose consumption. And you're using a bait and you're saying, dang, it's not working. We just wiped one out that must have had millions of ants around that property. Millions, it was just crawling all over the place. And we went in with Max Force Complete. We treated that whole area around. It's a farmhouse. They got 10 acres on that place. Huge house. Went in. They couldn't solve it. We went in. We just baited. Went back a week later. Found one big-headed ant in that entire area, which was about 10 feet from the house. We couldn't find it. So it can be done completely more effectively. Here's what happens with budding. People confuse budding with fragmenting. Budding is a natural reproduction that they use. We'll kick out a queen with brood, with workers, go start your own nest. Okay? That's budding. That's a natural occurrence in them. And this is why they're able to multiply so much. Because they're not antagonistic. They understand that, hey, we can work together and be more productive. What happens with fragmentation, though, is fragmentation is usually an environmental response, a threat. So what happens for fragmentation is, here's the problem with ghost ant. Customer has ghost ants. She's been trying to control it with taro. The problem with taro is they're consuming a 5% boric acid or tetrahydrate solution, and it's just wiping them out like that. They're not getting back to the nest. They're just dying. So what happens is she's putting that there, and she's got the nest in the cabinet. Every time she slams that door shut, she's just fragmented that nest. It's that simple. She opened up the microwave, disturbed them. They're fragmented. This is why they're so difficult to control, because people don't understand that biology. So by doing that and understanding that you need to really hunt for them is going to be the key. So that is the short course on the most ants you're going to deal with and the problem that we're dealing with ant control, because I guarantee you that the majority of callbacks are ant calls.